That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, God, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.
What's going on, everybody? Trey's over here staring at my eyes because I'm in Pete's seat because Pete is on the screen. He's at the house because he had a long day and still doing work. So
yeah.
Yep.
Speaking of doing work, we got a lot of work to do this afternoon. We have a great guest. Almost a part two.
It is a part two.
It is a part two.
Part deuce.
Part deuce. But before we jump into that, we want to thank all those that support this show and make this possible for all of our great guests to come on here and talk fishing and all that good stuff. And that starts with OneCast Fishing. We appreciate OneCast Fishing for being an awesome sponsor of the show. So head on over there and get your hands on all the snagless jigs, weedless neds, soft plastics, merchandise, long neck hooks, and everything else that they have to offer. You can go to onecastfishing.com and then use the code TheOneCast, all one word, at checkout to save money. And then while you're online, head on over to see our partners at Carolina Waters. They're going to provide you with all that UPF protective gear, from the hats, the shirts, the neck buffs, the gloves, and everything else that they have to offer for the outdoors. That buck stopper shirt, hunting season is upon us. So head on over to CarolinaWatersNC.com. Use the code TheOneCast, all one word, at checkout. Then use that link to keep your eyes protected with Hobie Eyewear. Click on that link. It's going to take you right to the website. You're going to save some big time money on all the different Hobie frames that they have to offer. The floating frames is what we recommend. Multiple lens options, cloudy conditions. The Sightmaster Pluses are fantastic, but they're also great for sight fishing when the spawn is on. So head on over and use that link, save some money. And then before your next fishing trip, download the Deep Dive app off your Play Store or your App Store. Deep Dive's got a ton of features. It's going to help you break down bodies of water and understand fish behavior in the best areas of the lake to fish. Deep Dive has been supporting this show for over a year now. We love the partnership with them, and we use their tools all the time. And then it's going to make you want to move to Central North Carolina. And you're going to need to hit up Uncle Terry. You can get him at Carpenter T at hpw.com. Terry is a licensed North Carolina real estate agent with Howard Perry Walson and Caldwell Banker, serving the Central North Carolina area. And he's an angler himself, so he's going to get you in that house that you want. Did I nail it? We good?
You got it all.
All right, fantastic. I should be a radio talk show host. No, I'm just kidding. I don't have the voice for that. So this week's episode, I know we're all super excited about it. We're going to jump right into it. We had Andrew Loberg on earlier this year. This was his rookie season, 2025. He had a fantastic season. Almost nailed it down at 10 killer with a second place finish there. He's in the Bassmaster Classic for next year. Finished 41st in Angler of the Year points. And we're going to have him do his rookie season recap and all his lessons learned. Let's bring him on.
What's going on?
Welcome back, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on. It's good to be back, man. Your guys' this podcast kind of sent a little catalyst for the second half of the season for me to make the Classic. So it was good luck.
Yeah. We'll have to talk about that because I think you were back on in July. And when we talk about your season recap, we can talk about some of your first three events there that you had to rally from the second half of the year. And, that first episode back in July, we had you on. We talked about how you got into the game, your love for bass fishing, and kind of your journey to the elites. And so we said we wanted to bring you back. And I think we talked about it in the episode of doing a postseason recap. So here we are. So welcome back once again.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. It was a good year, and we'll talk all about it.
Yeah. So you're sitting in Gunnersville right now, getting ready to knock out this really awesome tournament. And maybe we'll bring you back on after that to talk about that thing. It's like a $500,000 payout. But dude, 2025 was an interesting year. I mean, it was your rookie season on the elites. And do you remember that far back to your first tournament?
To be honest with you, it's a weird feeling, just like how the opens were. And, every other tournament year, big year I've had is the St. John's River. It felt like it was yesterday, like the first tournament. You're like, dang, this season went by so fast. But it also felt like 4 years ago. I mean, you're just going and going and going nonstop, tournament to tournament. And you feel like there's, no end to it. And then the season ends and you're like, what just happened? And then after it all, you're like, the St. John's literally feels like it was forever ago. But it went by fast, and it was definitely a big roller coaster this year.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, so, since you said it feels like yesterday, but it also feels like 4 years ago, you came in 102nd in that tournament, your worst season event for the year. And then you really stepped it up after that. But do you remember practice and then the tournament and some of the things that you're like, dude, I'm never going to do this again, or I absolutely need to continue doing this? Do you remember any of the lessons that you learned from the St. John's River specifically?
Yeah. So like the St. John's was a very, very prime example of what not to do practicing and kind of going into a tournament, so like obviously it was the first Bassmaster Elite tournament. I was just super stoked to be there. You're seeing everybody buzz around and their, fancy boats, right? Your legends that are running around that, you've been grown up watching. But, I went into practice, and in Florida is a very tricky place to begin with. And, coming from California, like fishing shallow, I feel like it's a little bit of a strong suit per se. So going into it, I felt, semi-confident, pads, docks, wood. It's tidal. I have a lot of tidal experience back home on the California Delta. So I felt, halfway decent just going into the tournament, just like this kind of suits my style. I can flip, I can chatter, I could, throw a spinnerbait, this, that, and the other. So I didn't really, I didn't really think too much of it, but going into practice, we had a cold front, obviously. Every Florida tournament in the spring, there's always going to be a cold front. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the fishing was very, very tough. And just to even get a bite for a lot of guys was just tough. And when I went down there and pre-practiced, and I spent most of my time offshore, like on the sandbars and hard spots, scanning, doing that deal. And I felt pretty good doing that. But in the back of my mind, I was like, you got to find a shallow bite. You got to find those big ones that are trying to pull up and spawn. And that was where I went wrong, was trying to do too much. And people that fish tournaments can understand what that means. And having a bad tournament is, I really did try to do way too much in practice. St. John's is a giant river. I spread myself out pretty far. And I try to do both. I try to do, the deeper game, some schooling fish, and then I try to go fish shallow. And as I was doing that in practice and the tournament, nothing was meshing at all. I go shallow, find a good, look like a good stretch, go fish. Nope, that ain't the deal. I got to be offshore. Then you go rush offshore to, one of your hard spots. You start seeing them on live scope. Can't catch them, or you're catching short fish. You're like, gosh, this isn't the deal. I got to go over there and go fish shallow. And then you just get in a really bad rotation. That's what happened. I mean, really what happened. But when you break it down, and, before that, after, I wish I would have redone the tournament, but looking back, if I would have just said, hey, if you put 2 flipping sticks in your hand and just went, you would have got 5 bites a day. Like, no problem. I wouldn't say no problem, but you would have just hammered down, look for what you want to look for, the right stuff, and you would have done it, and you got 5 or 6 bites in a day. But I just spread myself out and fished way too much water, and it just didn't work out. And that's kind of how those first couple of events kind of went for me. Was just trying to do too much, because you get to the
Well, I was going to say, in the St. John, just so big. It's
huge.
I mean, like the offshore stuff could be, and I can't remember. Was it this year that somebody did really well using a deep dive and crankbait? Was that this year or last year?
John Garrett.
John Garrett was. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so, he had a monster bag day 2 or 3. He had like 30-something pounds or something crazy on a 6XD.
Yeah, that spot will never be the same again.
Yeah, exactly. And that could happen, But yeah, the place was just so big, and going into the season, you kind of get a little chip on your shoulder and just want to win and want to beat everybody there. And if there's multiple patterns going on, you want to make sure you have them dialed, when that is not what you want to be doing, whereas in tournaments you do good in, you do what fits your style and you do the best you can at that. And normally it works out.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, I think, I don't obviously fish giant multinational day tournaments, but I can tell you that no matter where you're at, if you try to have too many things in your bag, like it weighs you down. Right. And
Totally.
you don't keep it simple, stupid, which a lot of times is really exactly what the deal is, at least to stay consistent. It might not be the winning bite, but if you just like you said, if I can just lock a couple baits in my hand and get 5 bites a day that are going to be, because it's 12 inches, right? Is 12 inches for Florida?
Yeah, it was 12 inches.
Yeah,
Yep.
12 inches.
Wait, you say that, but it's so hard.
I know it's
so hard to be like, I'm not this. I had one bite 3 hours ago.
Yeah.
And I could do all this other stuff and just to keep grinding out. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's so hard to focus on that when maybe on this type of grass, I go throw a chatterbait or get on some shell beds or run 100 miles up the river. Maybe it will be better.
And so, I know you, and I wanted to ask you a couple of things specifically and we can move on. But so you talked about having too much, and this could be a narrative for the first few events, like you said. What lessons did you learn with your roommates, right? Because that's something that not a lot of guys talk about. John Cruz has been the one that really came on here. He's a friend of ours and a friend of the show. And he talked about roommate etiquette and really establishing the ground rules for how you share information and stuff like that. Each household is clearly different. And trust is a huge factor. So was there anything, because this was the first year rooming with some of these guys, right?
Yeah, Emil Wagner and I, we traveled on the opens together, and I've known Tucker for a little while and Paul, but this was the first year of rooming all 4 of us together, and that's a lot of people. Normally 4 people in a house with sharing info or just talking about fishing. That's a lot to handle, and that was definitely one thing I learned this year, especially after those first few tournaments, was to kind of do your own thing.
Yes.
Like those guys are so good with their electronics and fishing offshore, and that kind of bit me, especially at the St. John's too. Is all 3 of them had pretty good tournaments there fishing offshore, and we were talking in practice of what was going on, and I was catching fish, and that's all they committed to, because they didn't really feel as comfortable fishing shallow, so they just committed to that one pattern of doing that, to have a good tournament. And I was trying to do both. I was kind of listening to a little doc talk, listen to, that, and never really trusted my gut of what to do. And it really bit me. But throughout the year, all 4 of us, we really kind of meshed together and kind of understood each other's strengths and weaknesses and kind of lifted each other up. And, we work very well together, as a team in a sense. We don't share waypoints and stuff, but we'll actually, I take that back. Not waypoints, but a couple areas and stuff that help each other out, to catch some fish.
You just got to take their map cards out. You're good.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so last question on the, just in general, but, and this can obviously, be a narrative that carries across the board too, but a lot of guys, and it's not just about forward facing sonar, but do you believe if you didn't have forward facing sonar on your boat, that would have really helped you during that tournament?
Yeah, I wouldn't have looked offshore at all. I wouldn't have. And when I say at all, I probably would have maybe a little bit on some of the current stuff a little bit, but I would have went to the bank and wouldn't have thought about, doing any of that for sure.
Absolutely. And I wanted to make a point for the audience too. Everybody talks about how live scope just puts fish in the boat, right? Forward facing sonar just puts fish in the boat. It also can handicap the crap out of you, because if you're trying to do too much at one time, that's like being a jack of all trades and a master of none. You can't do everything well at one time. Right. So I always tell people hey man, there's a time and a place for it. And if it's just not something you're strong at during that time of year on that type of fishery, then, maybe that's not what you do, So that's for the audience. That's obviously not for you, but good lessons learned from the St. Johns River. What did it feel like to get that 102nd place finish?
It was bad.
How did that hit you emotionally?
It was bad. It was one of those deals, you get a lot of texts from family and friends saying what happened, what was going on. Keep your head up. You're an elite angler, this, that, and the other. But, when you have a bad finish, especially your first one ever, all you want to do is just prove yourself that you belong. And you just start kind of getting those things, those kind of dark things in your head, like maybe I don't belong. Maybe these guys are, really good and you shouldn't be here. A lot of those things start creeping in. But yeah, it did not feel good because
I feel like that's the worst text you can receive after a tournament. What happened? like, don't ask me that.
We text our buddies that all the time.
Yeah.
What happened?
Fish swim. I don't know. Don't bite.
No, I think that, yeah, man, it's probably, but you know what? It probably at the same time, really lit a fire under you. And you obviously identified the things that you were like, dude, I can't do this again. And before we move on to the second event, Pete, I know you're over there in the man cave. Do you got any questions on the first event for Andrew?
Nope, you're good.
Okay, so let's move into I think it was the next week.
Yeah, you guys
was back to back to Okeechobee.
Okeechobee.
Well, what happened there?
Yeah.
What happened?
They didn't bite.
What happened?
It was the typical Okeechobee, man. It was I thought I found something, and this is another good lesson as far as of learning, especially in the spawn, because a lot of our tournament schedule this year was like a really heavy spawn oriented schedule, which I don't mind fishing in the spring, but tournaments is just, it makes it brutal because there's so many changing factors, the weather, just everything that goes on around the spawn. There's just so many things that change. And that is one thing that I learned, is to keep a big open mind, because practicing for a very large event, whether it be a championship or an elite event or whatever it may be, a big event in your eyes, in practice, you just want to find them. That's everybody's goal. You want to find the X, you want to find the honey pot and be like, this is it. This is the spot. When in reality, when you win a tournament, when you win a bass tournament, things are changing rapidly, no matter what. And when you win a tournament or do well in a tournament, it never really happens the way practice happens most of the time. You're always moving with the fish or changing with the conditions. And just like, Okeechobee was a very prime example of that. I found some fish in a certain area. I caught some really big ones, and the wind shifted and it moved some dirtier water into it. And I just didn't adjust, and I got stubborn, and in my head, I'm like, they're there. Like, they have to live there. They're spawning, and I just never caught any big ones. Those big ones moved out, or they moved around. And that's what, Okeechobee's a shallow mud bowl, and those fish swim around, and they can move 100 yards and you'll never know it.
And this was this, I'm trying to remember too. Was it this year? It was one out of the canal, the Rim Canal.
Yeah. Palmonic won it in the Simi River,
which is crazy when you think about it. Your first time you go to, first time on the elites at Okeechobee, like everyone kind of knows generally the best areas in Okeechobee. Was it the Monkey Box down there and south of the Indian Prairie Canal? But like, to have one in the Rim Canal, and then I don't know how like 5 guys find that one little spot. I remember watching on live. Like, how is there 4 boats fishing this one little spot in the canal? That who thinks to do that? Like, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it is wild. And going into, an elite event with only 100 boats on Okeechobee, I felt like the lake would play a lot more than it did, just because It's so historic. There's so many big ones out there. There was a Toyota event like 2 weeks or 3 weeks earlier. I don't know if you guys remember, but the giant weights, like huge weights. The first day, people were bringing 30, 20, high 20 sacks, like giant weights. And that was all coming from the lake. So in my eyes, I'm like, well, there's only 100 boats. It'll spread out, and even if it doesn't spread out, all those hot spot areas, there's still enough fish around where, even if there's 5 or 10 boats, whatever. And I just didn't adjust properly. And, I just caught a limit or whatever each day, but it just never really clicked to get those big bites.
And I think Okeechobee the last few years has shown, as you were talking about earlier, like how much thing changes during the bass tournament from day to day or from week to week. Because what was it, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, Joey won it in the river.
Oh, Tyler Rivette.
Was it?
Yeah.
Was it Tyler? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So because Jerry won 2 that year, I think. Yeah. So Tyler won it in the river. The next year, Martin goes out there and smashes records in the open.
Yep.
And then this last year was in the one of the rim canals.
Yeah, and with Okeechobee, obviously there's so much history on that lake. But you didn't plan for the wind shifting, or did you know it was going to shift?
I know it was going to shift, but I didn't think it would affect that area that I was in.
Okay.
And it was just, I don't know, it was just one of those kind of mistakes where I kind of put my eggs in one basket, where I was like, well, I'm just going to kind of focus in on one big area. There was some clean grass around there. It should filter it out.
Yep.
But it just never happened.
Do you still see guys? I know a lot of the older guys used to do this. I don't do it. But do you still see guys carry like a mason jar with them and dip it in the water to look at the water clarity and stuff like that? Like when before the sun is up, they'll dip and be like, oh, this is way too dirty. I need to move instantly. And I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's really the only thing that got you on that one was just the watercolor, right?
Yep. Because they, in the spawn that springtime, and Okeechobee in general, like in Florida, they have to have that clean water. They live on clean water, and they still swim quite a ways to find it. So that clean waters is definitely key out there.
But whether it's clean water or even stained water, and I've never been on Okeechobee, can you really sight fish them there, or is it just, can you actually see them when they're on the bed in Okeechobee?
Yeah, when they're spawning and you get into a cleaner area, you'll see them clear as day.
Okay.
If you get in that clean water and there's hydrilla mixed in, like when I was down there in 17, like I caught the same male on back-to-back days.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like you could see them 6 feet down.
So then I guess my last question on that is, you got wind shifting, some stained water coming in. Did you do a lot of practicing with forward-facing sonar and perspective mode at all?
I did in at Okeechobee. I used perspective quite a bit to try to find some spawning fish, and the spawners, it just wasn't really happening that well. Like they had a big wave. The weights in that Toyota were pretty much all spawners that went up, and our event, a lot of them pushed out. But you didn't see them. What I saw the most, and what everybody saw, was all tilapia that took over the beds.
Oh,
very crazy to see. The tilapia just, every bed you looked at was a tilapia. It was wild.
So you go from the St. Johns River doing too much, and then you go to Okeechobee with basically a solid plan.
A solid plan. Kept it simple. Had a few flipping sticks, and it still.
And it was the weather.
Mm-hmm.
It was the weather and the watercolor.
Mm-hmm.
So Florida, screw Florida. You know what I mean? But you still had a better. I love Florida too, man. But I've absolutely got my teeth kicked in Florida. Just fun fishing. It's just so dynamic. There even the lessons that you learned this year, like you may see those same conditions next year, but all of a sudden they're biting in dirty water. I don't know when they do that in Florida. It's pretty much a guarantee you probably need to move, but at the end of the day, like who knows what the Florida bass are going to do, man. They're like super crazy. So, but you had a better tournament. You came in 88th there, but then after that, so dude, it's crazy looking at the schedule. You go from the St. Johns River fishing a true tidal fishery,
Tons of water.
to Okeechobee, giant body of water that you can see from space. And then you bring yourself here to a very I would say similar, but very different Pasquotank River compared to like the St. Johns River.
Same thing, but different.
Same thing, but but different. Let's talk about the tank, dude. Let's talk about like the biggest lessons learned there.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll talk about it. I don't want you guys to say anything about it, but I'll talk about the tank because it's on our schedule. But yeah, like going into that one too, like I was very, very excited for the Pasquotank. Just watching YouTube videos and seeing, and we talked about it on the last podcast of how vast that place is. And, when we got our off limits, like our boundary, I was like, dude, you wouldn't even be able to make it to the boundary. It's crazy. There's so much water to cover. And, I made the play to just stay in the Pasquotank River itself. Just because I'd never been there historically, looking at tournaments in that river. There's big ones. It's got everything it needs. With 100 boats, guys will spread out. I could catch 5 in there probably if I really honed in and practice. I actually had a decent practice, and I caught some big ones. I caught a couple 5s, a 7. But as each day went on in practice, it just slowly got tougher. And that's one thing I learned, especially with this group of dudes on the elites, is they really know how to pick water apart very, very efficiently. And I think the pressure just really got to them. So a lot of my patterns that I had going just really didn't work out. And we had that big cold front too. I mean, it was like in the 30s at night, and that affected it. We had water that was coming up. We had a few feet of water, or something like 1 to 3 feet of water that came up, like like a tide from the ocean. So a lot of different factors that played to make the bite very, very tough. And hindsight looking back, the second day I ran to an area, and I caught a bunch of fish, and I'd never even been there before. I ran across the sound, went to a whole different area just to check it out, caught fish. My roommate actually had 19 pounds in there, and I didn't catch any. I caught probably 30 fish in there, and he just caught a couple big ones. I just didn't get any big bites, but I just didn't want to spread myself out and practice all around. I just wanted to keep it simple in that one creek, and it didn't happen for me. But looking back, on a new place like that, finding fresh fish, finding new fish, and keeping an open mind with weather. Again, another spawn tournament, spawn-esque type tournament. And the weather just, affected it, and I just didn't adjust well at all.
Yeah. Did you or do you know if a lot of guys came over and pre-practice the Pasquotank?
Yeah, there was a handful of guys that did pre-practice, and I wish I would have. I'm going to try to do it this year and pre-practice down there again, or go and check it out again. But there was quite a few guys that did, which is smart because with how big it was, just to run around is good to know.
I got a question about, places like Okeechobee can be very dangerous. A lot of shallow water. Places like the St. Johns River can be dangerous. Santee Cooper's dangerous. Pasquotank's very dangerous. Does that fear of like, I don't know where the hell to go, does that sometimes like play a mental block for decisions that you make with regard to like how far you're willing to run or what you're willing to do?
It does. Yeah, it really does, because this group, these guys, at a higher level, any higher level, It's kind of insane to think about, but like people will do anything to go catch fish, like literally anything, and to find the winning fish. They'll do anything. And in your head, you have to be the same way, you know?
Sure.
There was guys making 3-hour runs or something insane. There was guys that didn't even make it back. They even got fuel and didn't make it back in that tournament. And even like in sketchy, I mean, the Pasquotank's not a very fun place to ride around, but like the Mississippi River or like you said, Santee. Like, I mean, those places aren't, it's not a fun place to run around in a bass boat, but guys do it, and you have to do it. But it does weigh on your mind a little bit as far as, getting into places and making sure you can get back and just the safety of it all. But that's what, the experience of running around and trusting your mapping systems and pre-practicing. And that's what all that work goes into, and trusting and looking at water and what you should and shouldn't run, and trusting your boat. So that all goes into just experience.
Okay. So biggest lesson learned from what I gather is like go down there and pre-practice and look at more of the options, right?
Yeah. Look at more of the options. And just keep an open mind still, like that spawn type of tournament, man, you got to keep an open mind. That's just all That's what it is. And I've had really good spawn tournaments, like really good ones. And I've also had really bad ones. And the good ones that I do have is you just go on a whim and just go fish.
Hey dude, I'm here to tell you, Pete can attest to this. There's a culture of anglers in North Carolina, dude. They get fixated on like, once that water temperature reached 60, what do they say, Pete?
60 degrees.
Yeah.
60 degrees. They're on the bed. You know what I mean?
They're not moving up. They are not moving up.
And
2 days.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey man. And sometimes that's the case. And sometimes it's just not the case. And so, looking at a place like the Tank, I have no doubt in my mind that you're going to have a great event there.
And this
year.
This isn't fishing advice. This is safety advice. Do not trust your maps in that water system. I promise you. I spent a lot of time down there. Do not trust your maps.
Yeah.
Because you end up like Pete going vertical on a stump.
Oh my Lord. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I learned that pretty quick when I was there.
If there's even maps, they are not accurate. So
yeah.
I think we hit something every time we're there.
I hit something every time, and I have safe
time,
Mark, but I still hit something.
Yeah,
I know. It's by the end of the season this year, and we'll go through the other tournaments. But it was funny. My boat wrap was just tore to shreds. And they're like, "Why is your boat wrap?" I'm like, "Dude, we literally went to every river system in North America. It had stumps and rocks, trees,
cypress trees.
Yeah, that's what happens. That's what happens.
Oh man." Well, let's move on to stop number 4. And that's going to be at a very different place, and a place that you did very, very well at. And that was that after this show?
No, these are all before.
Oh, they're all before. Okay. So you had a 15th place finish in South Carolina at Lake Hartwell.
Yeah.
A place that I like to fish. Let's talk about that, man. I mean, it went well.
Yeah.
But what are some of the good lessons, and what are some of the things you do differently?
So that one went very, very well. Luckily, 2 of my roommates basically live there. It's kind of their home lake. So, I got a lot of help with them. Emil Wagner, he won the All-American there a few years ago. Paul, he's won tournaments out there. He won the elite event there. So we had a good communication group of what was going on. So for me, it helped just, to eliminate some water and kind of focus on what was going on. But that was a kind of a turning point in my season as far as keeping an open mind, because I had 3 bad tournaments basically in a row. And for me, I was just like, dude, you got to just survive. Like, you got to be in that top 70 at the end of the year in points. Like, let's just have fun. Let's turn around. Let's cash some checks, and just go do what you got to do. And like I was saying, that was another spawn type tournament. And everything that I was doing in the previous tournaments with the spawn, I totally did the opposite as far as I fished every day in the tournament. I fished brand new water. I hit a couple things the same, a couple of the same spots on that lake during the tournament, but they never really produced for me. But that was a big turning point, was to just keep an open mind and fish fresh water, and just whatever looks good, go to it. And had a good finish, fished around, looked at the weather conditions. I kind of knew what the deal was, and just buzzed around the lake and was able to scrape up enough for, that 15th place finish, which was awesome.
So with a lake like Hartwell, it's like a lot of our lakes around here. Like certain areas of the lake are going to be on fire, and certain areas of the lake are going to be dead water. I don't know how it was during that, but with your roommates and stuff, doing so well, and two of them essentially being their home body of water, how do you guys make sure you're not getting on top of each other, though, when you're sharing that much information about like where it's going down on the lake?
So like a place like that, it's kind of tough to be on top of each other, just because we had the herring spawn going on.
Yeah.
Typically that time of year, you're not really sitting in an area at all. Like you're literally moving around as much as you can. Like you're fishing an area for like 5 to 10 minutes and leaving. So it wasn't really necessary like, hey, you're on my spot. Like that's, what the heck. It was more of like trying to find a pattern, was what the deal was. And a pattern, or, you find a couple herring spawn points, things like that. So it never really was like, hey, you're on my hole. Like, what the heck? It was like, found a pattern, all together. We knew what was going on, and we kind of just went after it. There was a few dates that were key, and it just, worked out with all of us.
Was there a lot of sight fishing in that one?
There was, a lot of guys did good sight fishing for largemouth. I never really did the whole sight fishing deal. Those fish, I think we had an off day there.
So, because I did want to say, because you were talking about during a spawn event and fishing all new water. I know some guys, especially if it is all sight fishing event, they'll go out 2, 3, 4 days before and mark every single bed.
Yep.
With a waypoint. I have seen in my, just small club tournaments, but even when down there at Murray, when you guys were fishing the tournament and Pete's dad and I were just fun fishing, like it was all about moving around.
Yeah.
Like we went back to pockets that had good fish the day before, but they were gone, or they had been pressured too much. People had yanked them off the bed. Like,
yep.
And those spring spawn type events, like it is good to move around, because you don't know when one pocket's going to turn on and the other one doesn't, or if you just go across the lake, the way the sun's hitting it may push those fish up more. Like you got to keep moving.
Yeah, I mean, one day derbies are a lot easier than 2, 3, 4 day tournaments and stuff like that, and the spawn. And Pete's opposite. I've gotten a lot more interested in fishing spawn events. I've gotten a lot better at specifically bed fishing and stuff, but it's one of the most unreliable patterns in a tournament ever. Mm-hmm. Right? Because of weather, because of pressure, because of the ability to see fish. I mean, there's places where it's like, dude, there's no way that fish is going to be there tomorrow, because somebody is guaranteed going to get there before me. Right. So like, there's a lot of like,
they dump their aids and move off, or the weather changes and it pushes off, some spooks and pushes them off. Like those type of events, you can probably go around and catch 5, depending on the lake, like average bucks all day long. But like, there is some luck involved of pulling up at the right pocket at the right time, and that 6-pound female is slid up and
exactly
hasn't dumped her age yet, isn't rolling, will bite, will lock down, and you miss that. Sometimes you can miss that window by a little bit, and you're out of luck.
You're screwed. Yeah. So previous to Hartwell, had you had any blueback herring fishery experience?
Not a ton. So last year, I fished Lanier quite a bit with Paul and Emil Wagner, because they live on that lake. And then I spent like a week in pre-practice before our last open. We were supposed to have an open. Our last open was supposed to be in Hartwell last year. So I spent a week trying to dial it in, the herring and that whole deal out there, and felt pretty good about it and learned a ton. I mean, we don't have a herring back in California, so it's a whole new ball game to me. but I learned a ton from that until they moved the event. So we didn't even fish Hartwell last year, but I did spend quite a few days with them and fishing those lakes to get comfortable with it all. So yeah, I did have some experience a little bit.
So for the audience, just what is your biggest lesson learned? What did you learn the most about blueback herring? Because we have it up in North Carolina. It's not nearly as prominent as it is in South Carolina and stuff. But what is the biggest takeaway for blueback herring fisheries?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest key, for me that I've learned with herring lakes is you really got to move around. You really got to move around and find. There's always a zone of a lake that's better than others. Whether that be, up the river and there's a herring spawn going on, and then it goes down later, like towards the dam later in the year, so there's always a little bit certain, with water clarity. So moving around and really checking, different points, whether it be at main point or they're on the secondary points or they're in the back of a creek or on brush. There's so many different variables that they can be on. But once you find that one golden ticket or that one puzzle piece, you can go run it all over the lake and catch them.
Yep.
But once you crack open that box, and they're doing it, you can go run it around and pattern them, and then, have a good rotation of spots.
So you got to burn some gas. You got to burn some gas.
Yeah, you got to burn some gas.
And you got to burn some gas to find them in practice, and you got to burn some gas to catch them in the tournament.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the one key thing is you got to be able to make sure you make that perfect cast, because you only get a couple opportunities at them or else it's done. That's one thing I've learned. Yeah,
Pete got a little experience. Was it two years ago on Murray with Ike and Alley and Bob Downey, didn't you, Pete?
Yeah, except neither one of them were really fishing herring spawn because they were late boat numbers. So
Pete just went swimming for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, boat number is a huge deal, especially on on some of those herring fisheries. I mean, you're a late boat, you kind of get sometimes screwed, right?
Exactly, because a lot of the main community areas and any lake, whether it be herring or not, hold the biggest and most fish on them. And if you don't have an early boat number to get to one of those holes, and you're in for a treat. But
yeah, better have a backup plan.
Exactly.
All right, so where did you go after Hartwell? You went to
Land of the Giants.
Oh man,
a fork.
You went from blueback herring to gizzard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so Fork was an awesome event.
Okay.
I actually used to live there. I don't know if I touched on that in the last podcast, but I used to live there for about 8 months, basically from my transition from California to Alabama.
Okay.
So I had a little bit of experience there, kind of knew what was going on. It's a very small lake compared to what we go to. Like, it doesn't really fish as big as it should, but it's awesome. Giant fish in the lake. It's historic. And, I kind of went into that tournament with an open mind. It was more post spawn than spawn, but there was definitely still some spawning. We had a gizzard shad spawn going on, and but I just kind of stuck to my roots in that one, man. A lot of guys, live scoped them, offshore. Tucker won it, scoping, offshore on the main lake, but I found a few areas with some good grass in it, and caught them in the grass, and was able to catch 2 giants out of the grass to kind of keep me up in that top 20.
So, you had experience there, but obviously every time you go back to a lake, you learn something. I would say a lot of times we learn something new, unless we're just going to history and stuff all the time. But did you run history, or did you run a lot of new water? And if you did, what was the biggest thing that you learned?
I did run in a lot of new water that I never fished prior. When I lived there, I didn't fish it a ton. I mean, I did spend some time out there, but I never really scanned a ton and never really did anything outside of the box. Kind of just went to some of the main areas and just tried to catch big ones. And so it was good to actually have a big tournament there and really dissect it and see what was going on. And the area I caught them in, I've been there prior, but never that time of year and how it was set up. But when I found the area that I caught them in, everything kind of made sense to why they'd be there, and it worked out.
Yeah, and and unlike a blueback herring lake like Hartwell, like we just talked about, covering water, looking for where the bluebacks are spawning, if they're spawning. You talked about the gizzard shad spawn, vastly different than a blueback herring spawn, correct?
It is and isn't, but it can be very, very similar, but they kind of set up a lot longer than a herring spawn, and they can stay there all day. Whereas like herring bass, they can kind of move around and go from point to point. But these largemouth will just sit in one area, and you just catch them different ways.
Yeah, I mean, most people that watch like the elites or YouTube and stuff, they'll see JDM tackle like pencil poppers and walking baits and other baits that I'm not going to say to catch blueback herring, spawning bass eating those herring. But with fork, that's when like the big glide baits play, the big jerk baits play, flutter spoons, big plugs,
jig head minnows,
or jig head minnows, right? Stuff like that. What was your biggest weapon of choice for fork?
So I actually caught all. Yeah, I actually caught most of them all. I weighed a couple on a minnow, but I caught all my weight on a chatterbait and a crankbait, a Lucky Crab PDS-3.
Nice.
Yeah, kept it old school, fishing the grass. But I found some offshore grass that was like in 7-8 foot of water, and there was like a 100-yard stretch that kind of had him in it, and just kind of milked it for what it was worth, and caught some really nice ones out of it. It was fun.
That's awesome, man. Well, last question I have on fork. What do you think about having an on-boat marshal? Because that slot limit there on fork, do you like that? Catch, weigh, and release right on the spot?
Yeah, it was really cool, man. It was definitely different. When you catch your first big one, you got to release it, and you're like, hey, did you get the right weight? Did you write it down? Did you send it in? And then you just throw it back. Yeah. It was definitely a weird deal, but it was cool. It was cool to see. We just catch them and throw them right back where they were. Weigh-ins were a lot different. You just get there and you already know your weight, and you look at Bass Track and it's pretty much accurate. So you know where you're at. So it was definitely a cool experience, and the marshals were fired up. They were kind of more involved. They can weigh the fish and see it. So it was cool. I was able to bring one over in. I caught one. It was almost 9 pounds in the tournament. So I was able to,
Isn't it like 24 inches is the over or something ridiculous?
Yeah. Yep. I caught one day one that was like 23 and a half, and I couldn't keep it, but
you couldn't stretch it at all, huh?
No, I couldn't. But day two, I caught, it was like a 25 incher. So it was loaded, but
yeah. Well, they live there.
They do.
They live there, man.
Yep.
Well, that's awesome. Lake Fork, great event for you. What's the next stop?
We went back to back. Went to the Sabine right after.
Yeah.
So that is
my favorite event, dude. My favorite.
This is
my favorite.
Trey loves it. He can tell you why he loves it. I hate it because it's just a bunch of grindy, sweaty, small fish.
The fish are so hot they're sweating.
Like you got to make 100-mile run to catch 8 pounds. So come on.
Yeah, I mean you got like, dude. Yeah, that's a fat sack. So Green Pond Landing, that's Lake Hartwell, right? Green Pond. Fantastic stadium like weigh-in. Lake Fork always shows out, but dude, Orange, Texas shows out too, right? Yeah. And even though they don't have the size of the bass, the reason I love that event the most from a viewer perspective, because I don't watch a lot of like live bass fishing because I'm usually bass fishing. So but I love that tournament because it is so dynamic. I don't care about what size the fish are. I care about watching the athlete strategy and how their mental and physical fortitude are in a place so hot, so vast with little tiny bass, dude. Like that plays a psychological impact, right? So I just, and I rewind that back to watching Christy win years ago when he was running an aluminum boat, and watching him go to the gas pump and jack his boat up to get it all the way topped off with gas as full as he could to make those long runs to wear him out on the spinnerbait. So the Sabine to me is just like, dude, that's where like that separates some people. And that's another place that you as an angler can make up so much ground in AOY standings too. Right.
Oh,
so
totally. Yeah.
Talk us through like some of the coolest lessons and some of the bad, some of the good.
And was that the first time you were on the Sabine?
Yeah, that was my first time I've ever been there. It's definitely a wild place, man. It's a little sketchy, like running around. It's like running across the Sabine Lake, and just the whole vast area is just crazy. The shipping barges is unbelievable how many actually go up and down that thing and around everywhere. All the sunken barges and pipes, and just everywhere you look, it's just crazy. You know, it's just like you're driving down the river and people are probably looking at you like, why is there a bass boat out there?
Who's this guy with half a wrap on his boat?
Yeah, exactly. You know, and it is a cool tournament, you know, fishery, because it is so big. It spreads people out. And the weights are, you know, definitely tight. So it was a very, very, very awesome place to go. It does separate people because you got to be, you know, mentally in it, because it's a draining place, man. When you're not getting bit and it's hot and there's gators and snakes and all this stuff going on. I have one story in practice. I was just fishing down this bank, doing my thing. It was like 8 a.m. Birds are chirping, super calm out. I was just throwing a crankbait or whatever I was doing. And out of nowhere, all I hear is just the biggest, it sounded like a body hit the deck of my boat, back deck of my boat. I turn around and there's literally a 6-foot alligator gar that jumped out of the water, landed on the back deck of my boat, and is flopping around. I'm like, what in the world do I do here? And it just slithered out of my boat and back in. And I'm like,
you had a dinosaur in your boat.
Yeah.
Literally. I'm like, what just happened here? I have a video on my phone. I barely got the tail end of it. It was about to go on the bottom of like the middle of my boat, but it went backwards and slid through my power poles in the back. And I'm like, that was the craziest thing in the world. So there's so many factors that go on there.
Did it scare the shit out of you though?
Dude, it was the calmest morning in the world, and all of a sudden it just sounded like a bowling ball hit the back deck of my boat. And it just turned into chaos. I'm like, what am I gonna do with this thing?
Dude, I thought you were gonna say that you had like a giant cottonmouth like fall on the back of your boat.
No, that'd be worse.
That would have been terrible.
That would have been terrible.
Like there would have been,
I would have been out of the boat.
There would have been 45 caliber rounds like through the boat. I better, you know, but that's pretty cool, man. So yeah, so I mean, so you know, you had a 68th place finish in that event, right? So probably not what you wanted, but definitely better than.
Yeah, no, it was definitely better than I thought it was. Actually, I'll take that back. I had like a whatever practice. I did find one good area, and Cooper Gaunt and I were sharing water. I ran up there the first day of the tournament, and he was there, and Lee Livesey was there. And there was a couple other guys milling around, but it was mainly them two that kind of figured out the deal.
Okay.
So the day one, I had a good day. I had like 6-7 pounds, whatever. I was in the top 40 or whatever it was. So I was like, cool, I'm going to go back up there. I didn't catch a limit quick, but I caught a limit. I'm like, there's fish here. And Cooper had a good day. He was in the top 10. I'm like, awesome. I know there's fish up there. Lee had a good day. I'm like, sweet, let's do it. I ripped back up there. And this was another lesson that I learned. Both, you know, Lee and Cooper were up there, and they were awesome dudes. Like both of them are just super, super studs. And, you know, because I'll communicate. Is it cool if I go over here? You know, it was probably like a couple mile stretch, but we were just kind of hopscotching back and forth, doing whatever. And I was flipping a Beast Coast jig, a 3/8 ounce and a 1/2 ounce, just kind of, you know, fishing cypress trees and whatnot. And that's what the deal was just flipping a jig. And I like doing it, flipping trees, no big deal. And I caught 3 like fairly quick. I had like 3 in the box at like 9:30. I'm like, dude, I need 2 more bites, and we're going back. I mean, it took me an hour to get there. And I had 3 in the box. I go up to Cooper. I'm like, dude, you got them or what? He goes, dude, I got 0. I'm like, that ain't good. Like, maybe it's gotten tough. I go the rest of the day without a bite.
Oh, wow.
And there was, like, after the first hour or 2 of not getting bit, I was like, you kind of start getting that feeling because you kind of hit some of your best stretches. You're like, whatever, maybe, the fish will reposition. And then I come back and I see Cooper again. It's like noon. I'm like, what do you got? He goes, dude, I got 4. I'm like, all right, cool. They're starting to bite. Like, we're all in this together. And I really started fishing fast because the bites I was getting the day before and that morning, you pitch it in, it literally hit the piece of wood and it's game on. And I started just going as fast as I could, in a sense, just trying to get that bite. And in reality, I should have slowed down a little bit, maybe changed trailers or colors or whatever, and really picked apart the best areas like he did. And he had a top 10 finish, you know what I mean? Yep. So I was in the right area, I had the right bites, per se, and I just didn't slow down enough to get those 2 more bites to make the cut. But just another lesson, to be had where when the fishing's tough like that and you're in an area that there's bass in, just to kind of hunker down and fish for them and not move around too much, because I just kind of went back and forth too fast, tried to fish new stuff, and it just didn't work out.
I think that's a really good message, for all the anglers that are watching and listening to the show. And you hear anglers say it all the time, slow down. It's so hard to slow down when the clock is winding down. Yeah. But you gotta, and this is for all the anglers listening, like, you think about it, you, Lee, and Coop in one area, 3 of the top tier anglers, you're hitting fish in the face over and over and over and over and over again, right? They're feeling that pressure. They feel the pressure of the boat. They feel the pressure of the sonar. They feel just existing in that area is pressure to them. And then obviously weather conditions and stuff. So
you got to slow down.
That's where you literally, like, sometimes where you're like dead sticking it at the base of a cypress tree to see what happens.
And that's a great point. One of the things I have learned the most from talking to a lot of the elite anglers and watching them, over the years in live, but really talking to them, is when we say slow down, like you slow down twice.
So slow down twice.
Because all of us fish too fast. Like, I guarantee it. Like, I watch some of these, like, they'll make 5 different pitches to the same log.
Yep.
And they'll, like, work it and keep it there. We're like, I might make 2.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 if it's a big log, but it is something like that to sit down and to pick apart a piece of cover. And, like, especially when there's like a million other pieces of cover right in front of you, sometimes it's the middle of the game is really hard because you're not getting bit, and you're like, well, then I just need to put my bait in front of more places that may have a bass.
Sure. Yep.
But a lot of times, no, they're there. That you just got to slow down.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's great advice for everybody listening, man. Slow down, right? Because at the end of the day, you can fish past the fish, right? And sometimes those trees have more than one fish on them, but only one bites. And then, so, I mean, you see that right now in the fall transition, right? And we won't talk about that on this episode, but fall transition is one of those things where, man, like guys are covering water like I did today. And then all of a sudden, as soon as you get bit, like, I hit the brakes, and then I fish an area very thoroughly, and you will get multiple bites if you fish it very thoroughly. So just a good lesson learned. So Sabine, though, you survived Sabine. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. It wasn't a total loss. I got some good points and stuff going into the second half of the season for sure.
Yep. The third to last stop is that third to last stop 10 killer. Mm-hmm. We talked 10 killer at length during our last episode. But if there's anything you can think of, I mean, obviously it was your best event of the year. You almost brought that home, man. I mean, literally, like
an ounce.
That was just insane. But since our last episode, is there anything you, because I'm sure you do game footage review or you just think about things all the time, and you know that one that got away. Since our last episode, is there anything you can think of on 10 Killer that we didn't talk about last time?
Not that I can remember, no. That was another one where I probably should have slowed down, like the Sabine in a sense, like especially that final day. But you know, we touched bases on that. But no, it was we pretty much covered everything on that last episode on 10 Killer.
And you don't have right now, you don't have or do you have a YouTube channel where you do all your tournaments?
No, I don't. I just do everything on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
Okay, so I'll give him a free plug since we just talked about Cooper. You know, Cooper's done a great job with his YouTube series. And you want to talk about slowing down and picking things apart, go back or go to Cooper Gallant's YouTube, the Chase series that he has. And he has all of his tournaments from the 2025 season on there. And you can see what Andrew's talking about with picking things apart. He literally, I think you're even in his YouTube video on the Sabine. I know Lee is for sure. But definitely he's, flipping bushes at 10 Killer, and he has some gizzard chats. I don't know what it was, some schooling fish and stuff. So you guys can kind of see what Andrew's talking about through Cooper's videos and stuff like that on 10 Killer. But man, what a phenomenal event. I do want to ask one question before we move on to the last two events. Does it ever, this was your first year, so it's hopefully it does happen, but you look at guys like there's several Elite Series anglers that have taken a ton of second place finishes. You ever think to yourself like, dude, that better not be my best finish?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I do think, there's something better for me in the future with tournaments, and I can, definitely get some wins under my belt. But I do think about that tournament quite a bit, and all the things that went on, and losing by an ounce and whatnot. But overall, it was still a big win, and it was a big win mentally. That I can compete against those guys, and that I had the chance to win a tournament, to win a trophy. So that was a huge catalyst for the last couple terms of the season, just in a confidence way.
100%.
Once an angler gets confidence in himself, it makes it that much better for him to fish.
Yep. Well, dude, look, it gave you 103 points and springboard you into the second to last event, which was up at Lake St. Clair, which you had a 32nd place finish at. That's my home state, there in Michigan. Talk about that. Was that your first time there? And what are your biggest lessons learned with a smallmouth fishery like that?
Yeah. So we actually went there last year for the Open, and that was my first time last year. So I had some experience prior. So I kind of knew the certain areas I could play and baits and things like that. So I felt pretty good. And the last two tournaments, going into the Mississippi River, we went there last year as well. So I kind of had some experience on both of those. And I don't know, I can't remember what I was in the points at the time, but my roommates and I were talking, I needed like 2 top 20 finishes or something like that to try to have a chance at the Classic. And I talked to John Cruz about it too, because him and I were basically in the same spot. He's like, yeah, if you have 2 top 20s, you should be in. Like that should seal it. Because at that, with 100 guys, it's so hard to gain that many points on them. Yep. And when you look at it too, when you're like the top 30 or 40 in points, especially that late in the season, they never really suck. Like those guys in the top 30 or 40, they're always good. So it's like, it's hard to gain points on those guys. And that's the tough part about it. So, but I knew I had to have 2 really big tournaments, and St. Clair was kind of one of those tournaments where I felt like I feel like I'm pretty decent with live scope, and I knew I could compete against a lot of these guys. So And I've been there, and I had 2 really good days. I had 20 and 22 pounds the first 2 days, and then kind of fell apart a little bit day 3 and lost some big ones. But yeah, it was pretty straightforward tournament. I went into practice, hoping to find, that magical spot. Never really found it. Found a couple areas that I knew had some big ones in it, but I guess one of the a lesson learned from that one would just be, to kind of just fish a little bit new water, because there was so much pressure in that anchor bay that we were all fishing in. And I kind of some of the same fish I was fishing for, because, there were fish kind of reloading in some of my areas, but to have a little bit more of an open mind and just check new stuff. And I never really did that third day, which kind of bit me, but it was overall a great event, and I moved up to like 50. I think going into Mississippi River, I was like 52nd or something like that in the points. So
and for the audience, what do you need to be? Because I think a lot of people are like, oh, you just need to be top 50. You don't need to be top 50 for the Classic, right?
No, it's actually top 40.
Top 40, yeah, like you said,
top 40 it qualifies for the Classic, and I knew there was at least 2 double qualifiers that at that time going to the Mississippi River. Easton, he was in the Classic because he won it this last year, and then there was somebody else that was double qualified. So I knew they were taking 42. So in my head, I'm like, I need to jump 10 spots, and I thought that was going to be another like top 25 finish, or something like that. Which, I mean, as you see on my results, like making a top 50 is no joke against these guys.
Yeah,
it's
I can imagine.
50th place cutting a check is no joke, because they're all really good. But going to the Mississippi River, been there. I love frogging, punching, fishing shallow. Like, I just love fishing that way. So there was a lot of mixed emotions of what I wanted to do and where I wanted to spend practice at, because for those that don't know, the Mississippi River up in Wisconsin, we have 3 pools that we could play with. There's pool 7, 8, and 9. We launch out of pool 8, and you can go up to 7 or down to 9. And locking can be very, very sketchy. With barge traffic, you have to time everything perfectly, and it takes a lot of your time, just locking in general. So I kind of had to play it right, and I had previous history in pool 7, and I spent some practice in there. I spent day 1 of practice in there and had a pretty good day. And for me, going into practice, I told myself I needed a big tournament, and I felt like pool 7 historically has the bigger fish out of all 3 of the pools. So I wanted to spend some time in 7, and I did. I had a good day 1, and I told myself I needed like 15 to 18 pounds in practice if I'm going to go there. Like, I need to have a good day, because in practice for me, I always feel like if you have in a practice period, if you can catch, let's just say 20 pounds anywhere or whatever the lake may be. If you have 20 pounds that tournament day, 17 to 18 is like pretty likely. You know what I mean? Like, because there's always things that change and stuff that happens. Or you can have a better day. But in my eyes, if you're like, I can catch 20 consistently, 17 to 18 is going to be, pretty average day in there. So I think I had like that day 1 of practice, like 17 pounds or whatever, day 1. I'm like, okay, that was cool. Day 2, I went down to pool 8, had another good day down there. So I was kind of mixed on what to do, but I knew 8 was getting a lot of pressure in certain areas because there was guys. It was kind of a strategy tournament because there was so many guys that were basically in the Classic that didn't want to risk locking anywhere. So they stayed in pool 8, like a bunch of guys did.
Oh.
So there was only a handful of guys that went to 7, and the third day of practice went back to 7, and I found a couple other stretches of fish, and I told myself, I'm like, dude, if you're going to make the Classic, you got to go in style. Like, you got to catch them. You got to do really well. So for the tournament, I locked up and had a really good tournament. I pretty much frogged and punched the whole time, and and had a really good tournament and did what I wanted to do, and it made it happen and made the classic.
Yeah. And you got to do it the way you like to do it.
Exactly. And it was a little nerve wracking too, because day one I had like 17 pounds or whatever it was. And I get on stage and I was in the top 10, and Mercer goes on stage. He goes, "Yeah, it looks like you need a top 10 finish to make the classic." And I'm like, top 10? Like, I thought I needed like a top 20 or something like that.
Damn you, John.
I'm like, all right. So I'm like, day two, I'm like, dude, I really got to catch him now. And, caught him decent again. It just slowly got tougher, and the wind, we had a big cold front that came through, and the wind kind of stirred everything up, and ended up finishing, I think, 13th or 12th or something like that. And barely squeezed in there.
Yeah, but that place, I mean, I've never been to the California Delta before, but is it set up a lot like that?
In ways, yeah. The Mississippi River is just
not
one
tidal.
way current.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one way current, but it does set up like how they position in the grass and things like that. So I definitely felt a little bit more at home with how I was fishing.
I love that event, especially as the last one, because usually you've had your run of smallmouth fisheries, like this year was St. Clair, but a lot of times you have Champaign or St. Lawrence or wherever else, right? And we all know with smallmouth fisheries what it's like. Even with forward-facing sonar, it's almost the same as without.
It's identical.
It's exactly identical, because you were using 2D and drop shots before, and now you're just using forward. So, like, to have that last event where there's so much variety involved, it's just kind of old school fishing.
And smallmouth played in that event too.
And that's what I also like about. I remember watching a video a couple years ago when the elites were there. Maybe not the last time, the time before. The guy was throwing a Carolina rig, got shot.
I think it was Brian Schmidt, wasn't it? Schmitty.
Well, no, this wasn't Schmitty.
He was. Seth Fighter years ago whacked him on a Carolina rig and on one of them.
Yeah. So it wasn't those two.
Okay.
But he was like in practice, and on day one of the tournament, he was wrecking the largemouth. And then he goes up there on either day one or day two, and it was all smallmouth.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's a nice surprise.
Yeah. It is cool, man. What? Go ahead.
It's a very, very cool last tournament. It's, if you haven't been there, it's what people don't realize too is it's a very stressful last tournament, because there are so many obstacles and so many things to hit out there and to wreck your boat and to break something. And it's scary because and then with barge traffic, there's so many things that can go wrong that aren't really preventable. Like, we have so many things in a tournament that we can prevent ourselves with: oil maintenance, charging your batteries, making sure you have your baits, tying your stuff on right, all those certain obstacles and variables that you want to eliminate. But out there's so many more, and for it to be the last one, it just adds so much more stress. It makes it exciting, what people don't really see, when they're not there fishing or, haven't been there. It adds a lot more excitement to what's going on, because it's crazy. The decision making too is crazy on that place as well.
Absolutely.
And of course, it's got all the drama built up because it's the end of the season, AOI race. The winner, I still think it's the automatic berth to the Classic.
Yep.
Which helps because Pat's now a double qualifier.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pat was a double qualifier. So Dakota Eber, he qualified because Pat won.
Yep. And then Emil winning that open got John Cruz into the Classic too.
Yep.
So that was cool to see.
Yep.
And Chris Johnson won an open.
And Yep.
Yeah,
did he win?
I don't think that might have been one of the other ones. I can't remember.
I don't know if you fished all the other tournaments to
I feel like I think you have to fish all the opens to qualify.
You have to fish all. I know you have to fish all in your division, so all four.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was one Chris just jumped in and won, or if he. I don't know if he fished the other three.
I think he just jumped into that one. I don't think he fished any other ones, but I don't think he was a double qualifier for that. But I could be wrong. I'm not sure.
Well, hell of a 2025 rookie season, dude.
Yeah,
you're in the Classic. Yeah. You can't win it if you're not there. So you're going to Knoxville next year.
Yeah.
So that'll be
It
awesome.
was cool too to see is, my other 3 roommates, we all made it, 4 of us made the classic, our rookie year. And it was really cool that we all kind of meshed together and all qualified for the classic our first year. So it's
coming to Knoxville for it too.
Does Tucker and Paul, do they just carry their trophies around with them and set
Pretty
them up
much,
in the house?
pretty much.
Well, no, so they got century belts though too.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So do they wear their belts around the house? They
should.
Yeah. So okay, so for 2026, before we wrap everything up here, let's do a quick, fast forward. 2026, all of you guys in the house from 2025 requalified for next year. Is it still going to be the same roommate setup? You guys going to roll the same?
Yep, same group of guys, and yeah.
Okay, and then
what event are you looking forward to most?
Yeah, that's what. Yep.
Honestly, Gunnersville, first one. It's first one of the season's always exciting, but I live here now. We don't have live scope for that event this time.
I would love to. I want to ask you this because we debated this. I've heard a couple other anglers talk about it. Because half the events, or almost half the events,
60-40 or
60-40, whatever it is live scope allowed, live scope not. Some of the tournaments I don't think is going to make much of a difference. I personally think this Gunnersville one, how people practice and how people fish it is going to be completely different because live scope's not available.
Totally. This one,
like if live scope was there, I think how it goes down, maybe the weights would be close theoretically, but like how it goes down, where people go, I think it's going to be a huge difference.
Yeah, that tournament and like Champlain are the two that they're two fully different tournaments, like with or without live scope. Those are the two that are way different for sure.
Here's who here I say watch out for Andrew at Gunnersville, and I say watch out for Seth Futter at Champlain.
Oh yeah,
that's what I say. Right.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. And then I don't even know the Arkansas River. I have no idea about that place.
I don't either.
But we'll do another episode. We'll publish another episode with ourselves talking about our projections and stuff like that. Earlier in the year, we projected Chris bringing home a second AOY, and that happened.
Oh yeah, I think that was your pick.
Yeah, he was my pick. I thought Welter was going to win AOY again for the MPFL, but that didn't happen. Walter's got that, but yeah, dude. So Gunnersville next year. I mean, it's actually right around the corner. It's really not that far away.
It's an early tournament this year, February 5th.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be straight winter.
Yeah, winter fishing.
Winter fishing.
It'll be cold, man.
So, okay, so you're looking forward to Gunnersville, and people ask this question all the time, what are you not looking forward to? But I mean, if there was one on the list that you're like, which one are you like about?
I guess, I don't know, maybe the Tom Bigby. I've never been there. It doesn't really look that crazy fun, but at the same time, kind of like the Sabine, I think it's just it'll be another cool grinder tournament, it's funny for me, like, tournament fishing, I'm so ate up with it. Like, I don't really care where tournaments go. Obviously, I like going to places just for the enjoyment of catching fish and catching big ones or whatever it may be. But I just like tournament fishing, man. So I don't really care where they go. But I'm looking forward to all of them. Really, it should be fun.
How often are you on the water? 7 days a week?
No. I don't. I'm not on the water as much as I should be. I still work a little bit part time. Yeah. Since I graduated college, it's for an agricultural consulting company back in California. Right. So I still work, but I do try to get out as much as possible if I have free time out there.
Last big question for you: What are your future like? What's the future look like for you? Are you going to stay in the Gunnersville area? Do you plan on just staying there forever, or what's the deal?
No, I mean, as far as the future goes, Gunnersville's home, man. It's an awesome place. I can't really see myself moving too many other places. I missed California. Fishing back home is just unbelievable. And that's another thing too. It's like, people ask where I'm excited to go for tournaments, where I'm not. We are so spoiled from Clear Lake and the Delta and our spotted bass fisheries. This is going to sound bad, but like it makes a lot of places out here just not that fun to fish. Like just to go out and fun fish. So, but no, Guntersville's awesome, man. It's just with the career of fishing, the hospitality and the fishing community around here is just awesome, man. It's I couldn't see anywhere else, like this. And I'm so close to all these great fisheries. I could be at Lake St. Clair in 9 hours or 10 hours. I can be down in Okeechobee in 9 hours.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those deals. Exactly. It's very central.
I do have some more questions if you have a couple more minutes.
When I've got something too.
Yeah, go for it.
And it's not really a question, but maybe it's what I'm trying to sell here. So next year we got the new forward-facing sonar rules. We briefly talked about it, but I'm starting to tell everybody who will listen, Bass needs to change it to where for either those 5 or 4 events, the anglers get to choose which ones they want. So you got 4 opportunities to use live scope through the entire season. You get to pick the 4 events you want it. Because I want to see the strategy involved. I want to see,
right.
Like I want to see, like, are guys going to use it on lakes, like a smallmouth lake, where like you're trying to find those extra big 5, but there's so many schools and people have done it the old school way forever. Or are you going to use it on a place like, I don't know, like the Sabine River, like last year, or maybe the Arkansas River that it typically doesn't play, but maybe it gives you, we've seen it given an advantage in places like that before.
Sure.
And other bodies of water. So I would love to see the strategy of how people would pick and choose when to use that technology instead of it necessarily being like flip of a coin.
Yeah,
I agree.
And maybe they will.
Yeah, that's a good point. Where they give the anglers like, hey, you have 4 opportunities to use live scope. Pick. You have to tell me before the tournament starts which one you're going to use it.
I would make you got to choose before practice.
Before practice.
Yeah. Choose at the beginning of the year when the schedule gets published. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I personally, I think you should leave it open because like if someone bombs, like, well, maybe I shouldn't do that strategy.
Well, you never know. What was the craziest thing that happened to you? Besides the GAR, you talked about the GAR. Was there anything like absolutely just crazy that happened to you during the 2025 season, on or off the water, like at a gas station or like, whatever?
Because hopefully it's nothing like Cole's where his boat flies off his trailer hitch.
Like I Cole Harris.
Yeah, no, I didn't really have. Luckily,
good.
I didn't have anything too crazy. I mean, some of these storms and stuff were pretty bad this year. Lake Fork was nuts in practice. I mean, it was scary lightning out there. Running across the sound is not for the faint of heart. That's it gets a little scary. I didn't. Luckily, I didn't really have anything too crazy.
Okay, well that's good.
Talking about the sound, we were talking about beforehand because we were all saying like, or Pete and Trey go down there more. I've only been in the show one a few times, and it's been several years. But
how many lower units you gonna lose?
Like, we were like, I don't think these boys understand like what's gonna happen to some of their boats. And I remember watching day one, like live cameras were breaking. I think Robinson had his entire graph from the front rip off. Just like
Mike Iaconelli's his YouTube series from this year. I watched him not too long ago. Really good series that he put together from his last 30 years, and he does a lot of throwback stuff. But his episode from the Pasquotank, he destroyed his boat day one. I mean, whole rub rail was gone.
It hit him in the face and cut his face open.
Cut his face open. I mean, unbelievable. So if you guys haven't seen it, you guys got to check it out because it's really cool.
Yeah.
It is, man. It is.
this year, man, the like I said earlier, like these lakes and rivers that we went to this year just took a toll on everybody with the boats and gear and stuff. And luckily mine's still in one piece.
Do you are you getting a new boat for next year, or are you gonna roll what you got?
Yeah, I'm gonna get a Phoenix 921.
Okay.
Yeah.
When are you?
I will tell you
already...
one crazy story actually.
Yeah.
That I wouldn't recommend anybody, but it happens. I was driving from Lake St. Clair to Leech Lake in Minnesota, and right before I got to Chicago, I had my front left truck tire while towing my boat blew out, going like 70.
In Chicago?
Just on the outskirts. Like it was busy traffic.
Oh, no.
And luckily, like everything, like timing was perfect where I was like in the right lane already. I freaking swerved to the right lane, but there was not much shoulder, and I had to swap that truck tire out. Luckily, Emil was behind me, so he helped me out. But I swear there was a big rig that was going to crash into us. I mean, it was the most unreal thing in the world, swapping a truck tire out on a diesel with big rigs going 60 by your head. So that was kind of.
They have like T-walls or something on the sides of the highways there, like big concrete T-walls. Is that what they are?
Yeah, luckily I wasn't in one of those, but it was like a grass shoulder.
You had grass. Okay, you're good.
A little bit of pavement, but where the pavement was right on the line, and there was no room to swap a tire out. So I mean, I had to do what I had to do.
Like it never happens at the right place.
No.
So I swapped out to my spare. It's a full size spare, on a diesel truck, which is great, but that thing has never been used. So now I'm like, all right, well, let's hope this spare gets through Chicago.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, the word to the wise for everybody that's a traveling angler or traveling in general, but specifically pulling a boat, is you need to pick your routes accordingly. Like, do not divert and go through the inner city of Chicago. First of all, you ain't going to have any electronics left on your boat, right? Secondly, carrying cash on you is key, right? Because there's a lot of toll roads that I know you go through toll roads all the time, right?
Yeah.
And when you go through tolls in Illinois, like they are expensive, right? They are super expensive. If you hit toll roads, I mean, it cost me like $34 coming from Wisconsin through Illinois back down to North Carolina. It's ridiculous. So carrying cash, making sure your spare tire's pumped up, making sure you got an impact wrench and you got a high lift jack or whatever it is, because that's another thing.
Here's a lesson learned I have. Also, make sure when you get your truck or your trailer back and they have changed tires, test it.
Yeah.
Make sure they didn't over torque it, because when you have a blowout on I-40 between Asheville and Knoxville, and there's literally no place to get off the road there.
Yep.
And you have to pull off, and you spend like 45 minutes cursing because you got to pound on a lug wrench and then like find a Cheeto bar to get that thing off because they over torqued it. Make sure you make sure they don't over torque your stuff, because then you can't even get the tire off.
I don't think a lot of these young anglers appreciate that yet. They probably don't have to, but I think it's good advice for the young guys and gals that are, at the high school level and moving to the collegiate level and so on and so forth. The logistical planning to travel across the country with a bass boat and a truck, especially a lot of guys that jack their trucks up, put oversized tires on them, and then leave the spare tire the same size from the original. I'm guilty of it, right? Like I have 33s on my truck, but I have the original spare tire. Like you're only going to get so far with those kinds of things. So like planning is key. And I know that you have lessons learned with that. Mm-hmm. And we definitely appreciate you going through the 2025 season and kind of rewinding on all those bodies of water. And we're looking forward to your 2026 season with all your roommates, and, getting that victory at Guntersville is going to be key, man, because that'll set the tone for, the rest of the 2026 season. Hopefully you win that $500,000 deal coming up here soon.
Yeah, I hope so, man. That'd be awesome.
And then you're like, I don't need any money from the elites.
Exactly.
Well, hey, before we sign off here, who are all the people that take care of you? And then, from partnerships and sponsorships, and then where can everybody go to follow you on all your socials?
Yeah, man. So, this year my main title sponsor was Southern Prairie Outfitters. It's one of my best friends, Jed Lamb. He runs, guided duck hunts and goose hunts. He's actually in Canada right now doing them. So if you want to go to Canada, hit him up. And then he's got a lodge in Arkansas, not too far from Stuttgart. So, it's an awesome time of season to go kill some ducks. Done with fishing for the year. So get out there and kill some ducks. But Southern Prairie Outfitters, great company to be with. Salty Crew, all my apparel and stuff. They've been a huge supporter from the West Coast. They make awesome, sun shirts, things like that, pants, shorts. And then, Phoenix Mercury, Power Pole, just that ride this year was awesome. Like I said, we beat our boats up, but we've been awesome. But another one too that not a lot of people think about is boat rigging, and the Bass Tank fully decked my boat out with all the greatest and latest and technology and wiring and batteries, Pro Guide batteries. They just tricked my boat out, but those guys have just helped me all year and helped me survive and, make the Bassmaster Classic. But you could also find, my socials and stuff. If you just type in Loberg Fishing, you'll find me on all of them. So.
Awesome, man.
Good deal.
Well, we appreciate you breaking it down. Stay online for us as we get ready to end the show. Andrew Loberg, ladies and gentlemen, going into 2026 hot, going to get that win at Gunnersville. Thank you for helping us continue growing culture of anglers, helping anglers one cast at a time.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate you having me on.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh God, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.